how the scout works. I mean, what do you do here?
What I try to do is I try to find the best players at all the positions and identify what is available. This year, one-dimensional power hitter was very available. What I mean by one-dimensional is a guy that can hit for power, probably doesn't run, probably doesn't have a lot of defensive versatility. And then, you know, I fill out those things and I tell our organization, and then, you know, I know that our team's needs are infielders. So then I start to look in on teams that have
Good infielders.
infield depth. It's not only good infielders. I mean, if I wanted a good infielder, then I would just say, okay, let's go get Manny Machado. He's creative. But infield depth is the key, because when, like, looking at the Padres system, they had Carlos Villanueva, who's now in Japan. They had Carlos Iswahe, who's now with Lotte. Then they have Freddie Galvis, who's the shortstop, who's actually the major league player, but I don't know his first name because he's a guy that I didn't cover that much because he's a major league player. And below that they had Jose Urias, and they had all these guys in AAA. And so I started looking at this whole team, and they have, you know, Javi Guerra, they have a shortstop prospect, they have all these prospects. I'm like, there's just not enough room. And so what I started to do is I started to cover the Padres a lot, knowing that I didn't know which guy was going to become available, but I knew when a guy became available that he was probably going to be a target for us. And I travel all over. I was as far north as Manchester, New Hampshire this year, and as far southwest as San Diego. And then I was in Tacoma. I had some crazy trips that most people in Korea probably wouldn't understand how far they are. But I flew from LA to Syracuse, drove from Syracuse to Buffalo, flew back to LA, then flew to Boston, then drove to Manchester, New Hampshire, then flew to Las Vegas, all in the same week. This is what scouting in August is like. So it's 5-hour plane flight, watch a game, drive 3 hours, watch a game, 5-hour plane flight, watch a game, 5-hour plane flight, watch a game, 4-hour plane flight, watch a game, 30-minute plane flight, take a rest.
It's not an easy job, right?
No, there's a lot of paperwork, there's a lot of video editing, and it's an inexact science too, to bring a guy over and know how he's going to adjust, and also the team's patience level with that player can really affect him. And I mean, we saw it last year with Andy. It was one of those things where if he hadn't proven himself in 2017, he would have never been given a chance to have the July that he had. Learn. The biggest power that anybody in baseball can have is the ability to keep learning. The game is constantly changing, and the demand for different abilities is always necessary. So if you're constantly learning and getting better at what you do, there will be demand for you. Oh yeah.
How in English? How do you say it?
Well, that you know, these are made-up terms.
Yeah.
So I could call it whatever you want. What it is it's putting your highest OPS player in the two-hole.
Yeah.
That thought process is totally different in Korea, where the idea is to get an executing hitter. You know, a guy that can move the runner over, or the guy that can do some other things. But the other difference about like the two-hole hitter in the States is a lot of those guys can run a little bit. And if you put a guy that can just hit in the two-hole, now he's not going to score because it's going to take too many hits to drive him in. So there's a lot more than just having Aaron Judge hit two. The fact that Aaron Judge is a good runner, now he's not a base stealer, but he can get around the bases, is important. You couldn't put Albert Pujols in the two-hole anymore because he can't run well enough, so you put Mike Trout there. Those type of theories are something that may not have been adapted yet in Korea, but I'm sure that they'll catch up. I don't see why not. You know, I've seen certain things get tested and tried over the last year in Korea, and I don't know. It's not my call. I'm not a manager.
But you're pro or con?
For the two?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think if you can have an OPS guy that's going to get more at bats that can run, putting him in the two-hole rather than the three-hole makes more sense. the only argument you could have is if that guy hit so many home runs and the two guys in front of him could get on base a lot, then that would make more sense. But it does make sense to have your best OPS hitter, assuming he can run a little bit in the two hole. And Lotte's kind of done that by accident over the last few years with Asa. Well, Daeho's a pure hitter, and Daeho's fits into the four hole. You know, with a lineup that we have Junhu and Asa and Byung-han, who can all run a little bit, and they all can hit for some power. And so it's not that difficult with Lotte when you have the guys that can hit the way they do, whether you put them 1, 2, 3, or 4. Obviously, you're not going to put Daeho in front of those guys because he doesn't run as well. And he's such a pure hitter that he can drive them in. So the problem that we have with Daeho not being as good of a runner really isn't a problem based on the fact that we have those other guys there. And now adding Carlos in there, who's a better runner and, you know, more of an on-base guy than a power guy to hit in front of Daeho too. You know, we have some, setting up our lineup is not the issue. We haven't had an issue scoring runs.
It's all about pitching
and defense.
defense.